Hello. Hey, everyone. Sorry, I was just telling them, I was like, "Shh." It's Friday, y'all. Happy Friday. All right. So I have a very funny story to start out with. I'm going to start out while Facebook lets everyone know that I'm here. I started in Sacred Space last night in the customer group, and I could not get my computer to work at all. I couldn't get the camera to work. So today I'm like, oh my gosh, what if I can't go live? So last weekend, one of our cats laid on my keyboard and he hit this button and this little orange light came on. I've never seen this button before in my life. Had no idea what it was, but the orange light was on. I was like, well, I'm not going to touch it because I don't know if it was on before. Apparently, it was my camera button. So yeah, my cat had turned it on to disconnect my camera, to block my camera. So new computers have a little camera thing so people can't spy on you, right? I didn't know this, so I got it working today, but it took all of us here at the shop. We were all in my browser settings. We were on Facebook. I almost opened up chat. I was trying all this other stuff and I was like, well, let me see what this, because Colin goes, maybe you shouldn't let Crowley lay on your computer. And I'm like, huh, when he laid on the computer, it made this little button go and I'm here today because, yep. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Alice. Hi, Stephanie, Teresa from Puerto Rico. Hello. Hi, Lindsay. All right, today, y'all, we are talking Imbolc today. It has been a while since I've been live here. Very excited. I love going over the correspondences, different practices, information, and everything, just so you can write it all down or you can, kind of get familiar with it and maybe add some new stuff to your Imbolc practice or your own personal ritual. So yeah, we'll just go over a bunch of different stuff today, a bunch of different things, all about Imbolc. Evelyn is here from Maui. Hello, and hello, Samantha. All right, so if you've never been here before, what I do have a little spiel. I'll go over some card stuff. I have my spiel, but I do pause in between things and go over questions and comments and then kind of move on with the talk some more. So if you do have any comments or questions, pop them up in the chat and I do go over them intermittently. So Imbolc, and that is how I pronounce it. There are a ton of other ways to pronounce it. I've always pronounced the M and the B, Imbolc. Actually, they're kind of more like the M and the B are together. Um, it's also Candlemas, which is like the Christian version of it. And it's also known as Brigid's Day. So some of the information, if you're familiar, we do have these lovely little decks. They are exclusive to us. It's called the Eclectic Witch Deck, and we have expansions. There is an Imbolc expansion. There's an expansion for every sabbat now in the shop. So some of the information I do pull off of here because they're really easy references. And then, I have my notebook of stuff. So hold on one second. April is here. Hello, Melissa. Hello, Lydia, and Amy, and Denise. Yay! Okay, just trying to get hellos. So Imbolc is Monday. It starts Monday, February 1st. And so, back in the day, it used to start at sundown on February 1st and last through the night into February 2nd. So it was a way, what you would do is you would light candles at night and carry the candles to kind of keep the candles lit all night until sunrise on the 2nd as a way to carry the sunlight through the night and into the morning. Okay. I definitely don't recommend that you leave your candles burning overnight unless you have, if you have the little electric tea lights, then you can still honor the way that our ancestors would celebrate Imbolc. But that's why sometimes you'll see something and it'll say February 1st and sometimes it'll say February 2nd. That's kind of the general way that it was done. Either if you want to celebrate this weekend too, you can do that. It's the halfway point between Winter Solstice and Spring Equinox. So we're really going to be honoring the return of the sun, the return of the light, new growth that's going to be happening, through the snow. You're going to start to see the trees, start to bud here soon, things like that. So that's really what we're honoring, is kind of the reawakening of the earth after the winter. Imbolc focuses on Brigid, who is a Celtic goddess of fire and inspiration and smithcrafting, poetry, all kinds of stuff. Brigid is actually one of my patrons. So Imbolc is big for me. So I love this time of year and I love talking about Imbolc and Brigid and kind of what she can do, stuff like that. So we will go into Brigid as well. Yeah. Okay. So that was kind of so when I do the lives here, I talk about the energetic wheel of the year. So I don't really go into, with the exception of Imbolc and Brigid. And then at Ostara, I'll talk about Yostre, who's the Anglo-Saxon goddess of spring. For a lot of them, for most of them, I do the energetic holiday, the energetic wheel of the year. So basically, just to kind of recap the energetic wheel of the year. The wheel of the year starts at Samhain, which is Halloween. And that's like the witch's new year. So you're setting your intentions for the new year ahead. Then you go into Yule, which is when you start to dive down inside of yourself energetically to really get to know yourself and get to the root of your intentions and why you want them and why you're making these goals for yourself. Then at Imbolc, it's the return of the light. You're going to light your motivational fires. You're going to reevaluate the intentions that you set at Samhain. So now that you've kind of dug down inside yourself, you can be like, okay, I still want to do this and this and this, but I don't really want to do this anymore. Okay. So then moving forward to Ostara, you're going to plant your seeds of action for those intentions. So right now you're awakening. You're putting that fire energy, you're getting motivated, you're really starting to take action, but you're going to plant the seeds of your action plans at Ostara. Then moving into Beltane, which is May 1st, you're going to add those flames. You're going to add that fire, that passion, that motivation to the growth of these seeds that you've planted. And then we move into Summer Solstice, which is June 20th-ish. You're going to add that last burst of sun, masculine fire energy to your intentions. And then at Lammas, which is August 1st, you're going to start harvesting. You're going to start to see the benefits of all the work you've done for the whole year. And then at Mabon, which is September 20th, is the first day of fall, you're really going to harvest and prepare for winter. And then after Mabon is Samhain. So it kind of brings you full circle again, which is why it's called the Wheel of the Year. So that's energetically what I talk about when I do these Sabbat lives, is how to embrace the energy of the Wheel of the Year and make it work for your intentions, and how to go with the flow of the energy of the Wheel of the Year. All right. Just want to catch up on comments and stuff. Cal is here first live, and Elizabeth is here for first live. Melissa is here. And then we have some tagging of people. Okay. Thank you for sharing. So yeah, we're going to go into easy correspondences, traditions, practices, things you can do to celebrate Imbolc that aren't necessarily witchy. But then I'll go into things that you can do that are witchy. As far as easy correspondences for Imbolc, your color scheme when it comes, if you want to decorate or do anything, your color scheme is white. White represents not only snow that's melting and kind of the purity that is all around, but in many belief systems, it represents mother's milk, which, we're starting to get into the birthing of animals and, the birth of life, and comes from mother's milk, which is a lot of goddesses. So there are a lot of myths that have to do with that at this time of year as well. So white, yellow, lavender, gold, and light green to represent new growth. So if you want to decorate your altar, your sacred space, things like that with Imbolc energy, those are colors you can use to really bring it in. I also read that red was a color of Imbolc because it represents the blood of new life. I personally have never associated red with Imbolc ever. It's always been white and light. So yellow, gold, and light green, and then white have always been the colors that I personally have used during Imbolc rituals. So for symbols, there's not a ton besides candles. Candles is kind of like that's what you want to do for Imbolc, is really light fires inside of you of motivation, but light them around you. Do things by candlelight, meditate by candlelight, really bring in. Candles are huge because they're representing the sacred flame within you, the sacred flame from your divine energy source coming down and kind of reawakening you for this, everything you want to accomplish this year. Candles are really big. Snowdrops, which is usually one of the first plants that kind of breaks through the snow when things start to thaw out. White flowers, and then either a Brigid's cross or a Brigid doll, which are also called bride dolls, bridey dolls, and that can all kind of be the same thing for a Brigid doll. So those are like the symbols. There's also, it goes into sometimes the symbolism of like sheep and because sometimes you'll have the birth of new life at this time of year, but that's really kind of getting closer to Ostara. So, like the baby chicks and baby sheep and all of those are really going to be more for Ostara than they are for Imbolc. So we still have snow. It's still cold outside, but the beginning stirrings of new life are starting with Imbolc. Okay. All right. As far as oil and herbs that you can use to oil herbs and incenses. So these are part of the Imbolc eclectic witch deck. There's dragon's blood, which is great for manifestation and power this time of year. Frankincense for spiritual growth and purification. Neroli for peace, meditation, creativity. Wood is good for awakening and focus, rebirth as well. Vanilla is good for success and attraction and inspiration. And wisteria is good for wisdom and divine feminine. Angelica is good for protection, but also new beginnings and introspection. Basil is good for success, clarity, confidence. Blackberry is good for grounding, abundance, and stability. Jasmine is good for harmony, happiness, and inspiration. Thyme, awakening and rebirth, as well as like healing and strength and growth. And then willow is good for fertility, courage, and optimism. I don't have any other notes to add to that. So if you want to make oils, incense, if there are any that you can drink or cook with, like vanilla, basil, thyme, you can add those to kitchen witch. We'll get to food though too, because I'm a kitchen witch myself. So incorporating or cooking food that goes along with the sabbats is something that I tend to do usually every sabbat to really harness the energy. Just trying to find my stack. There we go. Stones, so gems and minerals associated with Imbolc. Amethyst and citrine are probably my two favorites for Imbolc. And if you have ametrine, which is amethyst and citrine put together, then that's even cooler. But amethyst is good for creativity and new beginnings. Citrine is good for motivation and it represents the sun. Calcite is good for confidence and spiritual growth. Chrysocolla is good for balance and comfort and peace. Malachite is good for security, luck, and power. Peridot, which is I think August birthstone, it's like a very pale green, is good for abundance, healing, and mental stimulation. And then turquoise is good for peace of mind and support and unity. So if you have any of those gemstones, you can definitely put them out on your altar. You can carry them to help you, really embrace the energy of Imbolc too. Let me see if there's any questions or anything. No. All right. I do roll through the correspondences kind of quick because I like to get to the practices and stuff like that. Food. So there is kitchen witchery. And then blackberries are also, I know they were on like the herb and incense section, but blackberries, so you can make like blackberry cobbler, pie, anything like that is going to honor not only Imbolc, but also Brigid's energy. So that's kind of like a twofer there. For kitchen witchery, dairy, again, we go back to the whole milk thing. So the first milk of the season is being produced by animals. So the Celts took this milk and made butter and special cheeses to feast and celebration. Anything with rosemary and lavender. So you can add that to breads, cakes, meat dishes, vegetable dishes, etc. Cornbread and oat cakes help to welcome the fairy folk back after winter. And then there is a flat cake made with oats called bannock, and it's made either in like a pan or a griddle, and usually nuts and fruit are added to attract prosperity in the new year. So those are some things you can do for cooking when it comes to Imbolc. There are a few animals associated with Imbolc. As spring approaches, nature begins to wake from her winter slumber. The animals associated with this time of year embody the spirit of the coming warmth. So that would be the badger, who represents family, change, and strength. Deer represent affection, renewal, and wisdom. The groundhog which is Groundhog's Day, is usually the 2nd of February. Protection, rebirth, and community. The robin, growth, happiness, and luck. Sheep represent abundance, confidence, and support. And the swan, who is also sacred to Brigid, represents awakening, emotions, and transformation. All right. As far as gods and goddesses, besides Brigid, who is like the main goddess of Imbolc, there are a few other that you can honor this time of year. All right. Gods of Imbolc include, well, it says, as Imbolc primarily focuses on Brigid, the Celtic goddess of fire, the gods honored during this time of year are more associated with love and budding agriculture, because that's definitely something that's also happening this time of year. So there's Cupid, who's the Roman god of love and fertility, and then Eros, who's the Greek god of love and fertility. Faunus, who's the Roman god of agriculture and fertility. Phoebus, who's the Roman god of purification. Lupercus, Italian and Roman shepherd god, and Pan, who's the Greek god of fertility. So those are, if you honor the divine masculine, those are some specific deities that you can honor on your Imbolc altar or in your Imbolc ritual. And then besides Brigid, there are some other goddesses that are associated with love and agriculture that are honored this time of year as well, including Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love, beauty, and fertility. Brigid, Celtic goddess of fire, inspiration, and smithcrafting. Ceres, who's the Roman goddess of agriculture, or Ceres. I'm not really sure because cereal comes from it. So I always said Ceres when I was younger. Gaia is the Greek mother goddess of all. This Saraswati, who's the Hindu goddess of wisdom, and then Venus is the Roman counterpart of Aphrodite. So she's the Roman goddess of love, beauty, and fertility. Because we do go, so January, and then Imbolc is right at the beginning of February, and then we kind of hit right into like Valentine's Day and love, and there is a reason, why all of that kind of happens this time of year. So it's not completely commercial. I do want to focus a little bit more on Brigid for this live. All right. So Brigid is the Celtic goddess of fire, inspiration, smithcrafting, and a host of all kinds of other things. Okay, so she is a triple moon goddess, which means that she herself embodies the maiden, mother, and crone aspects of the triple goddess. Okay, so this is the time of year when she's honored in her maiden form. So when you're having to do with the maiden form of a goddess, there's a childlike quality, but there's also like that curiosity that comes with being a child. So there's a lot of inspiration that flows, a lot of creativity that flows, and a lot of the zest for life is kind of reborn or amped up, right? So Brigid is all of that this time of year. I became one of Brigid's, I was 18, 19 years old. I was really starting to get to understand paganism and witchcraft and where my place was in it. And I was really starting to figure out who I was. And I noticed that every year around January, February, March, I would get this huge surge of energy. And it took a couple of years for me to figure it out until I took a Celtic goddess work. I lived in England at the time, and I was a part of a moot, and we had workshops and meetings every month. And so one of the women did a Celtic goddess, and she went over Brigid, and she went over Imbolc and Brigid's time of year and how she was the goddess of inspiration. And that's when I looked back and I started to realize that every year, around the beginning of the year, I would really get kicked in the ass, and I was super motivated, and I was super high energy, and I would get a lot accomplished. And that was usually when, for me, ideas for business or crafty projects that I could do, stuff like that. It was always centered around creativity, moving forward, and ingenuity for me. So I kind of was like, okay, so I set up a little altar for Brigid, and I kind of was like, hey, I don't know if you've been talking to me or, kicking me in my ass, but I'm here and I honor. And like that was it. It was like an instant connection was made for me. And I've been honoring Brigid ever since. So, because she continues every year to kick me in my ass, and that's how I put it, because sometimes it's very little, or not very often, it's a gentle nudge. Usually it is a swift kick in the ass, and I'm high energy, can get stuff done, and I just have a lot of ideas flowing. So yeah, that's how I became, I guess, proud of Brigid, for lack of a better way of putting it. But I've been honoring her for 20 years now. So she's definitely helped me and changed my life. There is a Brigid card. Some of the more, I wanted to give you all formal information about her as well as like personal experience information. Because that's one of the things I like to do when I do go live is you're going to get a blend of, the book smart stuff, but then you're going to get a blend of real life. So, okay. Brigid helps the earth reawaken from its winter slumber. I do have to get nerdy for y'all for a second. I can't wear the glasses the whole time because I get that horrible reflection. But also, I get a really bad headache if I try to read without them. Okay, so she helps Earth reawaken from its winter slumber, inspiring each of us to awaken our inner flame and motivation to achieve our goals. It is believed that Brigid is the daughter of the earth god Dagda, born at sunrise with rays of light radiating from her head. Whenever she walks, flowers and shamrocks spring up in their footsteps. She is associated with healing, and healing wells all over Ireland and England honor her and her energy. Brigid was such an important goddess to the ancient people that the Christians even made her Saint Brigid in the 5th century in an attempt to further ease the transition for people from paganism to Christianity. Brigid is also a muse for writers, poets, storytellers, and more, giving creative inspiration and knowledge to those when they need it most. So if you are an artist, if you're a creative person, and you too, like the coming of the new year, and all of a sudden you get inspired and you're ready to roll, be Brigid kicking you in your ass too. So definitely run with it this time of year. All right. Veronica's here. Hello. Rhapsody says, I got Brigid's oil this year. Can't wait to use it. That's one of my favorites. And then Francis is here too. Hello. All right. All right. So I go into chakras every Sabbath. This is personal information that has just, I don't know, come to me, or something I've incorporated for the last 20 years practicing witchcraft. There's not a lot of stuff to back it up as far as chakras and associating chakras to sabbats. So this really is just kind of personal from me. Okay, so for Imbolc, one of the themes of Imbolc, along with lighting fires of inspiration, one of the major themes of Imbolc is cleansing and purification. Okay, so it's really time to, I know the new year started in January, but if you are wanting to work with the energetic wheel of the year, then you started your new year at Samhain, and now you're starting to come out. So you definitely want to cleanse yourself of like just the funk of the winter, the winter blues and all of that. So it is a time that the world was purified with snow. The world was cleansed with winter, and now we're kind of reemerging, right? So for me, Imbolc is a time to cleanse all of your chakras. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. My advice would kind of be to maybe Google how to cleanse chakras. If you want to do it yourself, there's some really good guided meditations that will send cleansing energy up. Usually, I always start with the root chakra and work my way up, kind of drawing energy up from the earth and cleansing and aligning, all of my chakras, starting with the root and then heading up to the crown and then kind of shooting the energy out, through the top of my head to my divine energy source. So that's how I cleanse and align my chakras. You can have another person do it. It can be done with a pendulum. It can be done with gemstones. There are so many different ways to do it that I definitely recommend maybe Googling how to cleanse your chakras and finding a way that really resonates with you, because cleansing and aligning chakras could be an entire Facebook Live on their own, because you can do it with food, you can do it with energy, you can do it with essential oils, candles, gemstones, another person, just guided meditation, color therapy. I mean, it goes on forever. So I definitely recommend you Google if that's something that sounds like something you would like to do as part of your Imbolc ritual, how to cleanse, and then you can figure out what is best for you. And when you're going over stuff, there's so much information on the internet. When you find a piece of information that really resonates with you, generally speaking, you'll get goosebumps. And those are called affirmation bumps. That's how you know that like that information was meant for you. So if you're ever scrolling on your news feed, or you read an article, or you pop in on a live and something all of a sudden gives you, goosebumps. Those are affirmation bumps. That means that there's part of your soul that was like, yes. So run with it. Okay. That's why I do teach and I do guide, but a lot of it I will tell, even the people in my Ink Spirit group who, I'm kind of mentoring and guiding, I will even tell them, like, do what feels right. Do what gives you those goosebumps, those affirmation bumps. So after you cleanse your chakras, or if you want to go the cleansing route, Imbolc really focuses on the solar plexus chakra. Okay, so that's going to be your third one up. It's kind of like right in your diaphragm area. It's yellow in color. It is your personal power center. If you have anxiety, you have an imbalance in your solar plexus chakra. And I am living proof of that. The more you can work on your solar plexus chakra, the more it will help your anxiety. And I'm talking like anxiety, like leaving the house, anxiety in public places, anxiety. Generally speaking, it's an imbalance in your solar plexus chakra. So your solar plexus chakra is your personal power center. It is your confidence. It is your willpower. It is your motivation. So if these are things you are lacking, you have an imbalance in your solar plexus chakra. So it's one of the keys to living your authentic self too. So if you feel like you aren't yourself, or you're not living to the most of your ability, then you have an imbalance in your solar plexus chakra, right? So it's yellow in color. Think of the sun. It's the glow of the sun. So anything yellow will help cleanse it, will help strengthen it, will help align it, right? So gemstones would include citrine and tiger's eye, which I know is brown, but it's a golden color. Yellow aventurine, so any yellow gemstones. Herbs for the solar plexus chakra include calendula and chamomile, ginger and lemon. Food associated with it would be bananas, corn, pineapple, yellow peppers, and then ginger and lemon again. And you can strengthen your solar plexus chakra with I can statements. So I can achieve my dreams. I can conquer this anxiety. I can change my career to this can. So the more I can statements that you can make, write them down. The more you turn them into affirmations, say them to yourself, things like that. That's going to help cleanse and strengthen your solar plexus chakra, your confidence, your willpower, your motivation to get shit done. That's all going to be in there. So if you have an imbalance, especially an imbalance, like I said, anxiety, but if you have like stomach anxiety, so when you have panic attacks, you're stuck in the bathroom, that's a huge indicator that you have an imbalance of your solar plexus chakra, because that anxiety is going to kind of flush out your lower chakras really quickly. Working on your self-esteem, your self-confidence, with those I can statements, those I can affirmations, and then working with yellow can really help cleanse and strengthen that chakra and that part of your life. And you can honor that during this time of year, during Imbolc, because this is all about lighting those flames of motivation and inspiration, and really taking hold of your confidence and your motivation and directing it to where you want it to apply in your life to reach your goals. Okay. So that's about the chakra. Julia says, just bought my first box. Can't wait to see what I get for my birthday month. Yay. What if your anxiety manifests elsewhere, still solar plexus? The root of anxiety, generally speaking, is the solar plexus. Yes. Now this is from personal experience. Now, how, and that's just because anxiety is generally a doubt in yourself. So that's what anxiety is. So you're doubting going out. You're doubting, like, can I do this? Should I do this? what happens if I do this and I fail? What if? So you're kind of doubting yourself, and that doubt is an imbalance in that solar plexus chakra because you have a lack of confidence. Now, how else it would manifest, because I know some anxiety manifests in panic attacks. So if you are kind of in this area with your anxiety, then it's a link from your heart chakra. So there's also some heart, maybe some self-love things going on, or how you express emotion, that's not clear. I've had panic attacks where I can't speak, then your throat chakra gets involved. So if you have your anxiety, to me, that is completely rooted in the solar plexus chakra. But how your panic attacks happen can shed light on other things. So, if you can't speak, can't breathe, things like that, then there's something deeper that you're not communicating either with yourself or those around you, or there's like emotion, there's ways you're kind of not processing emotions healthily, which is if you have a panic attack that kind of comes into this area. My panic attacks go through years of work, years of self-work, therapy, and stuff like that. I've gone from panic attacks, in the stomach area to now my panic attacks are kind of up here. So I know it's more of like a communication thing and also an overthinking, kind of living in my head type things, because this is where like I get really bad headaches now and kind of like a little twitch in this area that happens. But I'm getting out of the stomach anxiety, the panic attacks in the stomach, which is really exciting. So I'm moving it up the chakras. So hopefully we can move it up and out, with more work. So that's been my personal experience. And I've had anxiety for, probably since I was about 16. I'm 40 now, but it was always diagnosed, weird stuff along the way because I really didn't start to understand anxiety until like the last 15 years. So yeah, that's just been personal work that I've done or that I've had experience with as far as my anxiety and the different routes my anxiety's taken over the years. So, all right. Okay. Just wanted to see if there was any other comments or questions. And I hope that answered your question, Emily. So for me, it can originate, but it'll manifest. Like how your panic attacks manifest can also tell you other things. But generally speaking, anxiety does have to do with solar plexus. So practices. So what can you do to celebrate Imbolc? I mean, besides have your own personal ritual, right? So you want to have a ritual, you want to, honor Imbolc that way or honor Brigid. You can definitely do that. But here are some other, I like to call them busy witch ways to kind of live magically and live the energy if you don't have time to devote to an actual ritual. Okay. This is the beginning of the time of the year to cleanse and clean. Okay. And there is a difference. To me, there's a difference. So when you clean something, you're wiping it down, you're organizing it, you're mopping, you're vacuuming, like that's cleaning. And then there's cleansing. Okay. So you want to clean first. Imbolc is about renewal and rebirth. So cleansing and cleaning are typical practices this time of year. So you clean first. Clean, organize, throw out crap you don't need anymore, throw out clutter. And I'm also speaking physically and metaphysically. So physically in your home, your sacred space, clean. If you're starting to get that, they say spring cleaning, but it's going to be starting around this time. So if you've got that, like I want to clean, do it, clean. So get rid of clutter, get rid of stuff that you don't use. If you haven't used it in a year, pitch it, right? If there's clothes in your closet and you haven't worn them, get rid of them, donate them, pass them down to somebody else, but you want to clean first. Then when you're done cleaning, you cleanse, okay? Cleanse, so cleaning is like the physical cleaning of the surface of the area, and then cleansing is the cleansing of the energy, the negative energy or the cluttered energy, the chaotic energy associated or that is in that area. So there are several ways you can cleanse, and this applies if you are in an apartment and you cannot burn, herbs. A lot of people are like, oh, just grab your sage wand. Like, not everyone can do that, right? Or some people have asthma. My husband hates the smell of sage. So I have to kind of find alternatives. So after you clean, you cleanse. You can smoke cleanse using burning herbs such as sage, rosemary, lavender, cedar, etc., or resins such as frankincense and copal. Okay, so you can get herb bundles and light the end until it smokes, and then that's smoke cleansing. Or you can get little charcoal discs, light them, put them in your cauldron, and then you can sprinkle dried herbs or resin onto those and onto that. And then that's going to smoke, and you kind of walk it through your house. You can sound cleanse. I love sound cleansing. I have a rattle that I do for sound cleansing, as well as bells, music, singing bowls, drums, all of this. Any kind of thing that's going to start out and send out sound waves. The sound waves will get into every nook and cranny. You can definitely cleanse using sound. And then a cleansing mist you can also do, so like salt water, and then spray it around, or you can sprinkle salt down and then vacuum or sweep it up. But a cleansing mist would work with made of either like salt water or herb water or essential oils. So you can either have the herbs in the water in the spray bottle or a few drops of essential oil in the spray bottle. These are all really easy ways to cleanse an area. You can also use gemstones. You can cleanse so many different ways. Now, when you do decide to cleanse, whenever you pick what method you're going to be using, I personally start at my front door and I work clockwise through my house, but you want to make sure you open up all your drawers, all your doors, cabinets, things like that. I start at the front door. I move clockwise, and as you cleanse something, close it, because it's cleansed in there, close the cabinet, close the drawer, and basically the negative energy, you're kind of pushing it. And I work clockwise around my house back to the front door, which I leave open so that you're pushing that negative energy, and then you can push it right out the front door when you're done. So that's personally what I do. I know people that open up everything. They open up every window in their house, every door, everything. And then every room, they kind of push it, out of that room and then close it. I'm just of the mindset where I just kind of gather it all up and send it out the front door at the end. That's me. After you cleanse, you can then protect. So you can dot the windows and doors with protection oil. You can set up a crystal grid, like 4 crystals in the furthest 4 points of your room, like your sacred space or your house. You can use quartz, selenite, onyx. You can use whatever you want. So you want to clean, then cleanse, and then protect. And then you're ready to go. You're ready to go for the year. And you can redo cleansings. I would redo cleansings during the waning moon into the new moon phase. You can charge your gemstones at the full moon and then put those back up if you have a crystal grid going for protection. There are maintenance things that you can do, every month to just kind of keep that energy cleansed and positive. All right. Candle magic is another really big practice at Imbolc, and this is like the last little card in the Imbolc deck. So candle magic is one of the most common and accessible forms of spell work available. It is easy for newcomers to pick up and can be built upon as you grow within your craft. Of course, there is even written in pink right here, never leave a burning candle unattended. In its most basic form, you can use any candle you have on hand. With your intention clear in your mind, light the candle and imagine your goals bursting forth with power. As the flame ignites, burn the candle as long as you wish and gently blow out or snuff the candle flame. I looked here because I know that there's a lot of controversy in the witchy community as to whether you should blow out or snuff a candle. That's going to be up to you. Personally, I don't have a problem burning or snuffing a candle and relighting it later. I don't think you're going to spend all this time raising energy, send it out in the world, and the simple little candle is going to just undo everything you just did. That's my personal belief, though. But you can imagine your desires carried out into the universe with the little smoke that rises when you do put out a candle. The next step is so that's like basic candle magic, right? The next step is to incorporate color into your candle. So you would choose a candle color that goes along with your intention. For example, green for abundance or money drawing, pink for self-love. So that would be the next step of candle magic. And then a supporting scent. If you can, get rose candles for love and cinnamon candles for money. And for example, you can do that. The next step after that is incorporating oils to anoint your candles. And then even so candle magic is like burning a candle is like candle magic easy step. And from there, it can go out to so many different complicated, you can coat a candle in oil, roll it in herbs. You can carve sigils, names, words, anything into the side of a candle and then coat it in oil and then roll it in herbs. There's layers. There are so many layers. It's like a parfait, right? Not an onion, a parfait. So candle magic can, like I said, can be simple. Believe it or not, candle magic can be as simple as making a wish on a birthday cake and blowing the candle out. That is candle magic. So it's all depends on how much time you have and what you want to do. Yeah. So you definitely want to do candle magic this time of year at Imbolc. Light your intentions for the new year. Honor Brigid and really just take that inner flame and put it into the physical world, if that makes sense. So you're going to take your inner flame and that motivation and send it out into the universe in a physical form. Other practices, you can look at your intentions that you set at Samhain or Yule and see which you're still aligned with and begin to formulate an action plan to accomplish these goals. So you just want to start formulating an action plan. You'll plant those seeds at Ostara. Some Imbolc crafts that you can make include Brigid's crosses and a bride doll, Brigid doll, corn doll. I am actually going to right now in the comments, I'm going to type out a really good resource for directions on how to make a Brigid's cross or a Brigid doll or a bride doll. So hold on. Imbolc Candlemas. Hopefully that will translate. Let me make sure. So it's a goddess in green. Yes. Okay. There we go. goddessingreenman.co.uk. They have a really good little chart on how to make a Brigid's cross if you decide you want to do that. And then different ways, they just briefly go into a bride doll or Brigid doll if you want to do one of those. Really fun if you have baby witches, like kids, and you want to teach them, making some Brigid's crosses is really fun. Any kind of spells that you want to do for renewal, rebirth, motivation, inspiration, and transformation. Any personal spells that you want to do for this can be done this time of year. It's gonna just have that extra boost of natural energy. And then create. Brigid is also a muse, like I said before, for writers, poets, storytellers, people that work with their hands. If you are a crafter, Brigid is a beautiful muse for that. Okay. So if you are inspired and motivated to create at this time of year, then do it. Paint, sculpt, write. Even if you're a writer and if you are like, I really want to write this novel, even if you just take this time of year to maybe get an outline going, just anything, those first steps are to plan out what you're going to do for the year. This is the time of year to do it. Brigid's energy is going to add to that. Imbolc energy is going to add to that. So any type of creative endeavor, now's the time to just embrace it and do it. I've talked to a lot of I've seen it is a common theme this time of year with a lot of my creative friends on like Instagram. Like we don't sleep a lot this time of year. We are just like, must create all the things right now. And a lot of us will give us a couple of months and then our energy will just kind of tank because like we birthed so many things at the beginning of the year, creatively speaking and metaphysically speaking, like we're exhausted. So we birthed at the beginning of the year for the first, 3, 4, 5 months. And then the second half of the year, we don't know our name. If this is you are amongst amazing company because like half of my Instagram feed is the same way. And you're definitely in tune with the wheel of the year and the energy that's going around. So, all right, that's all I have for y'all. That's it. So if you have any questions, comments, things like that, let me know. Otherwise, I hope this was super helpful for y'all. I hope that it was, if you were kind of trying to figure out ways to celebrate Imbolc, I just wanted to make sure that I was done. Some non-conventional ways or ways to just live it. That's what I enjoy doing. I like teaching people how to incorporate magic into your own life. We don't always have time to, sit here and fully do spells or rituals or do big setups. And so I'm a self-proclaimed busy witch. So this is my method of teaching. If this really resonates with you, I will take a second to do a couple of plugs, right? So a couple of weeks ago, I did start a podcast. It is called Busy, Gritty, Inked, and Witchy. So it's been picked up everywhere. So we're on Spotify, I'm on iTunes. So it's been picked up. So if you type in honestly, you can just type in Busy Witch Podcast and it should come up, but it's called Busy, Grady, Inked, and Witchy. A new episode launches every Wednesday. And I talked about moon magic this week because yesterday was the full moon in Leo. So I went over moon magic this week. And then if this is if you're really liking this, I do have a membership group that I do more of this in. So you're guaranteed at least 2 lives with me a month on magical topics. And then we have daily discussions. We have monthly challenges, monthly magical activities. And then you get a boatload of like downloadables, free Book of Shadow pages that I design, things like that. So if you would like more of this in a month, you can definitely join Inked Spirit, and that you can check out more of that at inkedspirit.com. So that's where I'm usually, is over there. Teresa, you're very welcome. Teresa says, thank you for this live. So much good ways to make it easy to practice. And then April said, this was awesome. I never really knew how to celebrate Imbolc. This helped a lot. You're welcome. Imbolc is one that, like all witches celebrate Halloween, right? We all celebrate Samhain. We're all there for Yule. The rest of them kind of get thrown to the wayside, right? Imbolc is a big one for me. So I love sharing about it and I love teaching about it and I love spreading the word about Imbolc because Brigid has just transformed my life. So I definitely like to share with people what her energy can do and what the energy of this time of year can do. But also, if you are one of those people that all of a sudden this time of year, like you're motivated, you're creating, you're cleaning, you're doing all this stuff, you're already there. Like you just need to know what to call it, right? So that you're there, you're here for Imbolc. So Elizabeth, you're welcome. Thank you so much. This is a great way to learn more. You're welcome. And Randy, the replay will be available in a second. So you're good. And Sarah says, I was born in Imbolc. That's awesome. You spring forth when the earth spring forth, right? With the new renewal. All right. So I'm going to go. I hope you all have an amazing Friday. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, if you want to, you can check out the podcast and Ink Spirit if you would like. And I will be there next week in Ink Spirit. We're starting self-love and self-care and the divine feminine and sexuality. So February is going to be fun in Ink Spirit. So thank you all for joining me. And I will see you all again soon. Bye.